You wake up suddenly in the middle of the night. The room has fallen into complete silence. No phone notifications, no distant traffic, not even the sound of someone sighing nearby. There is only a thick, heavy darkness pressing in around you. You quietly glance at the clock. It is exactly 3:02 in the morning. You close your eyes and try to force yourself back to sleep. A few heavy minutes pass. Then a quiet question begins to rise in your mind. Why does this keep happening? Maybe it is work stress. Maybe it is some invisible anxiety. Or maybe you are dealing with insomnia. But what if waking up in the middle of the night was not a disorder at all? What if your body was simply doing something humans had done for thousands of years, long before electric lights filled the world? Our ancestors experienced the night in a very different way. Many people did not sleep straight through until morning. Instead, they naturally woke up for an hour or two in the middle of the night. The strange part was not that they woke up, it was what they chose to do during that quiet stretch of darkness. Whatever they did, the practice was once so common that millions of people experienced it for centuries. Then, within just a few generations of modern civilization, it almost completely disappeared. Today, most of us no longer even know what that experience feels like. Some researchers believe we lost more than an ancient sleeping habit. We may have lost an entire state of mind, something deeply human and almost sacred. If you have ever found yourself awake at 2 or 3 in the morning with no one else around, what ancient humans once did during those silent hours might explain why your mind still refuses to settle back to sleep. There is something strangely mysterious about that moment of the night. It is not the darkness. It is not the silence. It is the feeling. You are tired, yet not tired enough to drift off again. It feels as if your soul is suspended between two worlds, with one foot still inside a dream and the other already stepping into reality. Time itself seems to move differently in that in-between state. 5 minutes can feel like half an hour, yet half an hour can disappear before you even realize it has passed. Strangely, many people never found this moment frightening. They described it as peaceful. By then, the noise of the day had faded away. The endless emails were gone. The stressful meetings no longer mattered. For a brief moment, the constant demands and distractions of life finally let go of you. It was as if the world loosened its suffocating grip, if only for a little while. Some people discovered that this was the one time of day when they could think with absolute clarity. Others felt an extraordinary surge of creativity. New ideas seemed to appear out of nowhere. Long-forgotten memories suddenly resurfaced. Questions that had felt impossible during the day became strangely simple. It was almost as if the mind was operating under an entirely different set of rules. Yet modern society treats this state as nothing more than an inconvenience. A glitch in the body's system. A problem that needs to be fixed as quickly as possible. But what if we have completely misunderstood this experience? What if ancient humans spent far more time living in this in-between state than we do today? For a long time, historians dismissed waking up in the middle of the night as an insignificant detail of everyday life in the past. Nobody paid much attention to it. It appeared in old documents the way descriptions of the weather did. Ordinary, unremarkable, and easy to overlook. Then one historian named Roger Ekirch noticed something that did not quite fit. As he pieced together everyday life before the Industrial Revolution, he kept running into the same curious pattern. It appeared in faded diaries, personal letters, court records, medical texts, and even religious writings. People of that time kept referring to something they called the first sleep. Then, after a period of wakefulness, they returned for what they simply called the second sleep. At first, it sounded like nothing more than an old-fashioned expression, a forgotten phrase buried by history. But the deeper Roger Ekirch dug into the records, the harder it became to ignore. The same pattern kept appearing across centuries, across different countries, and across every level of society. People would fall asleep, wake naturally in the middle of the night, stay awake for a short while, then return to bed for their second sleep. Suddenly, those scattered fragments of history came together to reveal something far bigger. This was never an odd habit. It was never considered a medical condition. It was simply the normal way millions of our ancestors experienced the night. That discovery led to an even bigger question. If people naturally woke up every night, what exactly did they do during those quiet hours? The most remarkable discovery was not that people woke up in the middle of the night. It was how they chose to spend that time. Some prayed. Some quietly reflected on their lives. Some held on to the fading memories of their dreams. Others planned for the day ahead. Some spoke softly with a loved one who had also awakened. In small villages and close-knit communities, people sometimes stepped outside to visit a neighbor. Historical records even suggest that many married couples chose these quiet hours for intimacy. To us today, all of this sounds distant, even strange. We have been taught to think of the middle of the night as empty time. Time that should be filled with uninterrupted sleep. Time with no real purpose. Our ancestors saw it very differently. To them, those silent hours were not wasted time. They were a living, meaningful part of life itself. Back then, there were no emails waiting to be answered, no meetings hanging over the next morning, no endless stream of notifications competing for their attention. For a brief moment each night, the demands of the outside world simply disappeared. Nobody expected anything from them. Nobody needed anything from them. No one was watching or judging them. Those quiet hours belonged entirely to them, and to them alone. Looking back, it may have been one of the rarest luxuries in human history. 1 hour in darkness, 1 hour in silence, 1 hour free from every obligation. It was the only part of the day when the world finally let you go. Which leads to another question. Why did humans keep this rhythm for thousands of years? To understand why this pattern became so deeply rooted, we have to travel much farther back in time. Not hundreds of years, not even thousands, but hundreds of thousands. For most of human history, the night was not spent behind walls. It unfolded around a campfire. Small tribes gathered together as an ocean of darkness settled over the land. The fire gave them warmth. It protected them from predators. It gave them light, but it may have offered something even more important, a completely different state of mind. Unlike the cold, lifeless light of the modern world, fire was always moving. Shadows danced across the rocks. The glow constantly shifted and flickered. Around that fire, the entire world seemed to slow down. Conversations became softer and slower. Stories grew longer and richer. People spent more time truly listening to one another, generation after generation. This was how human beings brought each day to an end. Researchers have often wondered whether traces of that ancient world are still alive inside us. Why do so many people feel calmer sitting beside a campfire? Why does the glow of a fireplace bring such a deep sense of peace? Why can we stare into a fire for hours without growing bored? Why can a single candle stir emotions that the brightest electric lights rarely can? We still do not have a complete answer, but one possibility is difficult to ignore. our modern brains may still carry the legacy of a world that disappeared long ago. A world of deep darkness, flickering firelight, shared stories, and long, silent nights. Then, one day, everything began to change. At first, the change was almost impossible to notice. It moved slowly, quietly. Then suddenly, it spread everywhere. For hundreds of thousands of years, darkness ruled the rhythm of human life. When night fell, the world came to rest. But during the 18th and 19th centuries, that ancient rhythm began to break apart. Gas lamps lit the streets. Factories stayed open later into the evening. Mechanical clocks became more precise and more powerful than ever before. Time itself turned into something to be measured, organized, and controlled. Then came electric light. For the first time in human history, darkness lost its reign. Cities remained brightly lit long after the sun had set. Work stretched deep into the night. Entertainment never went to sleep. The ancient boundary between day and night slowly began to disappear. Over time, something else was slowly squeezed out of our lives: our sleep itself. Instead of two natural periods of sleep separated by a peaceful hour of wakefulness, modern humans trained themselves to sleep in one uninterrupted block. What had once been a perfectly natural instinct gradually came to be seen as abnormal, until it was eventually forgotten altogether. Today, most people have never even heard of the first sleep or the second sleep. Yet perhaps the greatest loss was never about when we sleep. It was about how we experience the night itself. Ancient nights were darker, quieter, and slower. Modern nights are always bright, always connected, and always rushing forward. Which leaves us with one final question. What exactly did we lose? Maybe this is why so many of us still wake up in the middle of the night. Not because your body is broken, not because your mind is malfunctioning, but because some ancient part of you still remembers a different relationship with the darkness. We still sleep. In fact, we sleep more safely and more comfortably than any generation before us ever could. Yet the soul of the night has changed. True darkness has become a luxury. Complete silence is increasingly rare. Even the final moments before we close our eyes are filled with glowing screens, incoming messages, and an endless stream of information. Ancient nights once gave humanity a gift that modern life has quietly taken away. Time to be alone with your own thoughts. Time without demands. Time untouched by notifications. Time to reflect, to remember, and simply to exist. Maybe we did not lose sleep. Maybe we lost reflection. Maybe we lost silence. Maybe we lost the only part of the day that truly belonged to the most human part of ourselves. And maybe that is why those quiet moments in the middle of the night still feel so different. They are silent, yet strangely comforting. Almost as if a forgotten memory from our long journey as human beings is still waiting for us in the darkness. So tonight, if you happen to wake up in the middle of the night, don't reach for your phone right away. Just lie there for a moment, or sit quietly in the darkness. Listen to the sound of silence. Let your thoughts drift freely, like ancient clouds passing across an endless sky. Because for thousands of years, that quiet darkness was never a mistake of nature. It was a sacred part of what it meant to be human.